Well, every good business has to start with a germ of an idea. Perhaps it's a hobby that you want to turn into a business. I'm with business attorney Brian King. I'm Neil Gordon with Augusta Business Daily. How are you today?
Doing well, thanks.
So I'm really curious because I know you help a lot of companies set up and form their companies. I'm wondering if 10 people come to you, how many actually have a business plan in hand?
Well, that's right. I've formed a lot of companies over the years and helped a lot of businesses. And yeah, I mean, sometimes a potential client will come to me and they don't have a good idea. But what I help the clients to do is vet their ideas, and I go through with them. We kind of run through different cash flow analysis and talk about how they're going to earn revenue, how they're going to cover their expenses and keep that cash flow going. Because as you know, cash flow is king when it comes to businesses. You've got to have enough money coming in to pay your bills and operate, and then also to, just keep things going. So,
yeah. Well, and you helped with the formation of a partnership with Larry Rudwick, my business partner, and also my cousin. And the words pro forma came up a lot with me and him. And explain what that is and how far out do you need to be planning?
Well, usually you want to project out, 3 to 5 years at minimum, because, you want to kind of try to anticipate what's going to happen in those first key years. A lot of businesses fail in the first year, and then a lot of the ones that survive fail in the second year. So, but if you can make it past that first couple of years, you're usually going to do okay. But and then you want to have a long-term plan as well as to what's your goal? Is it to, make a living throughout some years, or is it to turn around and sell the business and move on to something else? So I have some people that come to me and they say, "Oh, I've got this great idea," and they want to run it for a while and then they want to sell out. And, and that's fine too. So.
Absolutely. And so they'll come to you as a business attorney, but who else do you advise that they should see?
Well, I look at it as a team approach. So you really should have, a good business attorney, a good accountant, a good insurance broker that's going to help you find the right coverages, a financial planner to deal with your retirement and all that, because, you don't want to work the rest of your life. You want to save some money for retirement.
Hawaii awaits.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, but those are your main advisors that you want to have on your team.
Wow. Have you ever sat down around a big table with several of them and a client?
I have. Usually what I'll do is I'll meet with the client, and then I'll call the accountant and keep them up to speed and make sure that we're on the same page with things, and make sure they haven't filed anything that I don't know about, because sometimes the client doesn't really know what their accountant has done on their returns and how they're filing their taxes. So, another one I forgot to mention was bankers too, because and what I usually recommend is to work with a local banker, because if you need to borrow funds for your business, you want to expand, you want to buy equipment, that sort of thing, you can work with a local banker to get those funds to be able to grow your business. So.
And have you done referrals? I mean, over 20 years, have you been able to learn maybe who some of the better partners may be? And do you help refer?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've worked with several accountants, several bankers, several, insurance brokers, all that, over the years. And so I have a good idea of, who does good work, and I try to, steer my clients in the right direction.
Oh, that's outstanding. Again, we're speaking with Brian King, and his website is up on the screen. He is a business attorney with offices in both Augusta as well as Atlanta. And you mentioned partnering with some other advisors. I've heard that at the very beginning, sometimes does a CPA and a business attorney actually work together to form the company?
Well, typically there are some times when an accountant will form a business for a client, and then they come to me, and then I will then prepare all the documentation that they really need. The accountant's job is not typically to form companies or to draft those organizational documents, but sometimes they will, like if they're, let's say the client comes to them at the very end of the year and they're trying to get something done and whatever. But most of the time, the accountant will refer them to me, and then I'll form the entity and advise them about that and draft those documents, and then I'll send a copy of those to the accountant so they're on the same page.
Well, you've heard the expression, what's in a name? How does that work with companies as well?
Well, it's very important. I mean, with the name of your company is going to carry with you for years and years, hopefully, and just like your own name, is very important. You want to protect your name and your reputation, and the same thing with your business. So, choosing a name is very important. You want to choose something that's marketable, generally. So, if something that describes what your business does or tells the public, what it is that you're doing is very good. I mean, you've got some examples in the market right now, with like Apple computers, right? So Apple doesn't really tell you anything about what they do.
It's a great trademark, right?
But it's a great trademark, but they've spent lots and lots of money in getting that trademark known. They've and so most of the time, we don't have millions of dollars to spend on marketing and advertising and stuff like that. So it's better to pick something, most of the time it's better to pick something that sort of describes what you do. Now, those names like Apple, like you said, they're great trademarks. And if you can get a name that is, that has its own, value to it, over time, then that's awesome. And sometimes a business may start out with one name and then they may drop parts of it, and keep something that can be more unique and more a little bit easier to trademark and that sort of thing. So.
And you mentioned partnering with different kinds of professionals. Sometimes marketing companies step in and they can help with logos and brand development. And I didn't have a lot of money, and so I was changing a tire with my friend Chad Trollinger, and I told him what we were doing. I said, yeah, we put out business news every day. He said, well, why don't you call it Augusta Business Daily? Sold. It sort of says what it is.
Sure, exactly.
To your point. So do you either copyright or trademark for companies?
I do file trademarks, federal trademarks for my clients, and when it makes sense. So basically, what the federal trademark will give you is protection all across the country for your mark, your name of your company or your logo. Each of those would be a separate mark to be trademarked with the federal government. So each trademark, there's a certain class that we file under, so if it's clothing, for example, but some businesses may do more than one thing, and we may have to file under multiple classes. So
makes perfect sense indeed. And once again, the website to reach Brian, if you're thinking about turning your hobby into a business, or you really want to formalize things and do things right on the front end so you don't have trouble down the road, his website is businessattorneylaw.com. Okay, right. Which is, by the way, a brilliant name to have as a website. We're going to take a short break, and just out of curiosity, are you the type of business person that sets your resolutions for the new year? Have you thought about what 2022 may bring?
Well, I'm always trying to, get more clients and help more clients, and my biggest resolution each year is just to help my clients be successful, because if they're successful, I'm successful. If they grow their business and they keep, they're going to keep calling me for things. And so.
Well, that sounds actually like a great testimonial. The folks here who allow us to be in their studio, Augusta Podcast, is doing something really neat for the new year. They're allowing business people to come in and actually share what their New Year's resolutions are. Okay. And then they are going to give them the content that they can just put out there and just sort of monitor how it goes. So their website is AugustaPodcasts.com, and there'll be a link at the top there on the nav bar for New Year's resolutions. Well, we want to welcome back into the program Brian King, business attorney with offices in both Augusta and Atlanta. Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
So you do a little of that I-20 commute sometimes, huh?
Yeah, sometimes. Basically, yeah, just go there to meet with clients. So
Yeah, well, in our previous segment, we talked about how to take an idea and to kind of get everything formalized and learn about cash flow and the kinds of advisors that you should have. And of course, our government has some mandates in terms of what you have to do to be legal. And so what are some other things that clients should think about?
well, you need a business license to run your business, and so you want to get a business license in the county where your business is located. So another thing that comes up a lot of times is if let's say you've got a business in Georgia and you want to operate in South Carolina, or you want to transact business in South Carolina. So what I'll do is I'll file a certificate of authority to do business in South Carolina for those businesses, and that'll be where the business in Georgia is going into South Carolina, going into the state to serve clients. That's where they would need that certificate of authority. If say people in North Augusta are coming over to Augusta to meet that business there, then they wouldn't need the certificate of authority in South Carolina.
Now, legally, what if you're not licensed? What happens?
Well, you could be fined.
Okay.
And that's typically what happens. So it's just business licenses are generally a money raiser for the community that they're in.
Gotcha.
So if you call if any business called the business license department and say, Augusta or wherever, they're going to say, yeah, you need a business license. And most of the time you do need one. I mean, now there are certain things, like if you're just holding real estate, and you're not leasing it out or anything, you're just holding real estate. That's not considered a business where you would actually need one. But most of the time you're going to need that business license.
Okay. Another thing that tends to be critically important, and I guess sometimes something you just have to do, is to insure your business. Why don't we kind of run through the different kinds of insurances and kind of the must-haves and maybe some that, you don't necessarily have to have.
Sure. So I typically recommend that clients get a commercial general liability policy for their businesses. And those are going to be exactly what it sounds like. It's a general policy that's going to cover most of the things that happen in your business. Now, I would recommend, you talk to your insurance broker and have them search for a policy that's going to fit your particular business, because they can be different. There's particular endorsements that could be on the policy and particular exclusions that could be there. So you want to make sure that what you think you're getting is actually covered. So just having that relationship with your insurance broker is going to be key there. So.
Now, with that, so if someone owns a building, let's say, and they have customers coming on there, is that the type of insurance that protects them?
Yeah, so a premises liability policy would be what you would want to. So it's going to cover slip and falls. Anybody that gets hurt on the property, you have invitees that you're inviting onto your premises, and so you want to make sure that you're protected. What I usually recommend as well is that you have if you do own the property, is to own it in a separate LLC. Now, a lot of times people are just leasing the property from their landlord, and so they don't have that option. But
sure. And then I'm wondering, what are the rules and regulations for you to have workers' compensation? I mean, because it's for your employees.
Right. So you have to have workers' comp so in Georgia, if you have more than 3 workers for you, then
does that include yourself?
It can include yourself, but you can also file a form with the government that would exempt you from needing it. So if you are so the owner doesn't actually have to take it.
Okay.
With the workers' comp, if you think about it, it's actually a pretty good protection for you. So if you have your workers on workers' comp, and they get hurt on the job, they're going to get that what the workers' comp provides for them, but it keeps you protected in the way that if they were to sue you for $20 million, they're only going to get what the workers' comp coverage provides.
Right.
So it does protect you
yeah.
as well.
I ask because we're bringing on a third person, including me. So that's real life for me. That's interesting. So I'll be speaking with my partner about that as well. Both of the two employees that I have or will have use their vehicle one to make sales calls, and another one is, writing stories. Do I need to provide some kind of coverage for them?
Well, you may, because you want to talk with your insurance agent, but if you want to make sure that you do have coverage when they are when they're driving for the business. So you need to inform the insurance agent that, yes, my employees will be driving their vehicles in service of my company. And because the way that insurance companies usually work is they're looking for ways not to cover you. So you have to have it specifically covered to be able to have the right coverage that you need. So so you would want to inform your insurance agent that you are going to have your employees driving their own vehicles. So talk to your insurance agent about the coverage for your employees if they're going to be driving vehicles or their own vehicles or your vehicles in service of the company.
Now, umbrella policies are another consideration. First of all, can you define what that is?
Yeah, I mean, well, an umbrella policy is just a policy that covers, it sort of overarches your underlying policy. So let's say your policy limits on your commercial general liability policy are, say, $1 million. You might get an umbrella policy that's going to cover up to $10 million, and it's going to cover from $1 million to $10 million.
Right. Oh, that's fascinating. And the last part of insurance that you may not think about if you're in business is life insurance. Now, in my situation with Augusta Business Daily and my partner Larry, we've decided that if something happens to him or me, our wives would be part of it. But I could see the benefit of having some kind of coverage too.
Right. So in most of my agreements with multi-member LLCs, so we've got multiple partners, the life insurance is good if, let's say, one person dies, and I have buy-sell provisions in my agreements. And so, like, for example, let's say one person dies, then if you would want to buy out that person, so you'd want to pay their estate for their interest in the business, but maybe the money is not there to pay it. Maybe the business hasn't gotten to the point where it has the money to buy that person out. Yeah. So, but you can use life insurance as funding for that. So, say the company receives the proceeds from the policy after the person dies, or sometimes you can have the cross purchase where let's say there's two business owners, where maybe the other business owner gets the proceeds from the policy and then uses that to buy out the other.
All right, throw you a little curveball. You've been doing this for 20 years, and I can't even imagine, probably hundreds of partnerships. Has anything ever gone wrong where there was not something like this in place, and sort of what's the fallout if you don't protect yourself?
Well, there's I mean, I've dealt with a lot of different partnership disputes and a lot of different issues that happen with partners over time. I mean, and it can really just vary from lots of different kind of scenarios. One of which would be not having enough money to purchase the other side out, and sometimes the business could fail, if it doesn't have the appropriate funding and all. So it is important to get those. A lot of times, you'll have, say, someone who is provided the funding for the business, and then somebody else who's doing most of the work. And at the very beginning, it all seems great, and the person who's doing all the work, he's very thankful to have the money to do what he wants to do. But then later on, if, say, 5 years go by and he's like, well, I'm doing all the work. Why should I be giving part of my money to this other person, right?
Sure.
And so they get into a dispute. But now sometimes what the resolution of that is to buy the other person out, and that sort of thing. But,
sure.
But yeah, there's I've seen a lot of good friends who become worst enemies over a business because it's like their baby. It's almost like a divorce.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what they say about
fighting over
sometimes your work wife or husband, you spend more time with them, right? Than your real spouse. So I totally understand what you mean. Well, Brian's been through this a lot over the last few decades, and his website is businessattorneylaw.com, and he has a lot of resources for you. You can get in touch with him. He serves clients in Augusta as well as in Atlanta. And both Brian and I are so proud to be associated with Augusta Podcasts. Their website is augustapodcast.com. You can look at some other podcasts, and heck, maybe you want to use this as a way to market your business. Get in touch with David or Chris, first-class people, and they're really onto something, and we're pleased to be part of the process. So happy to be back with my friend and business attorney, Brian King of businessattorneylaw.com. How are you, Brian?
I'm good. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, what do they say? Death and taxes, right? It's
Right.
mandatory, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of different taxes and implications. And I know you're not a CPA, but
Right.
still, you do, don't you kind of cross over in a way?
I do advise businesses about their tax obligations and what things they need to look out for. That's right.
Yeah. Well, why don't we take them one at a time? I think of, we've just, as we're recording, just past the holiday season, and I went in and I got gifts, and ding, 8%.
Right.
Sales tax.
Of course.
Yeah. What are the rules about companies paying sales tax?
Yeah, well, generally, products are going to be subject to sales tax. So if you're selling a product in your business, you're going to have to collect the sales tax from the consumer, and then you remit the sales tax to the government. Services are generally exempt. So like professional services like mine, I don't have to collect sales tax.
Makes sense, indeed. And then, you have employees, and we've talked before about the difference between employees and contractors. And I guess there's a benefit to having the contractor because then there's no withholding.
That's right. Yes, that's right. So all your employees, you have to withhold the taxes and then remit those to the government on a monthly basis for all your employees. But for independent contractors, you don't have to withhold from their pay. The independent contractors are responsible for paying their own estimated taxes themselves.
I'm trying to remember. I know it was kind of an odd percentage. Is it like 7 point something or 8?
Yes, 7.65% would be the portion that the employer pays for the employee in terms of takes out of their paycheck and pays that to the government. And like if you're independent contractor, you're self-employed, so you're going to pay that 15.3%, so it's 2 times the 7.65,
right,
to the government as your self-employment tax.
So if you're an employee, then of course you'd pay 7.65, and me as the employer, would be the same. And while we're on this topic, I know we've covered it before, but just the sort of the brief sketch of it. What makes you an employee? What makes you a contractor?
Well, it's generally the amount of control over the employee or the person working. If there's like several different factors, but generally if the employer or the business is providing tools, they're providing the hours that they're going to be working, they're telling them how to do the work and all that, then they're more like an employee versus if they're, you're hiring, say, like, I don't know, a plumber or something. You say, okay, plumber, I need this fixed, and you just let them come in and fix it. Then it's more like an independent contractor.
Sure. The other part of the taxes with the paycheck, unemployment taxes, and is that another odd number, 3 point something or other?
I don't remember what the percentage is,
or
but
can it vary?
Well, so your unemployment costs, like you're gonna pay unemployment. You take out unemployment for your employees, and if you terminate that employee in the future, they can, if they've worked for a certain amount of time and they've made a certain amount of money, then they can file for unemployment benefits if they are let go for, say, a reason such as there was lack of work. And a lot of people file for unemployment during the whole COVID scenario. So, but it is something that you have to pay as a business, and it's sort of like, it's almost like insurance, right? I mean, it's you're providing a benefit to your employees that you're required to provide. but it also is a sort of a good thing for the businesses as well. You can let someone go if you need to, and know that they're still going to have some money coming in if they can file for unemployment. But like, let's say if there's someone though that you fire for embezzlement or something bad, they're not going to be able to qualify for unemployment, and you'll put on your separation notice the reason for termination, and when they go to apply, if they go to apply for unemployment, they're not going to be able to get those unemployment benefits.
And I know sometimes employers and employees challenge each other. I mean, they could actually be a hearing. Is that right?
That's right. So usually the hearing is by telephone.
Okay.
So first the employee would apply for unemployment. The government then notifies the employer that, hey, an employee has filed. They ask for a response, and then the employer can say whether they want to challenge that or not. If they do say they want to challenge that, then they'll set a hearing, and then on the hearing, they'll ask both parties, the government will ask both parties what their side of it is, and then they'll make a determination as to whether that employee gets unemployment or in coverage or not.
I'm just wondering if an employer challenges an employee's right to file for unemployment and the employer loses, is there like a reevaluation of what that rate is, or does that not matter?
The rate would go up if they had, so the more people that take unemployment after a termination, the higher your rate is going to be. So yeah, you don't want to have a lot of layoffs where you're going to have a lot of people filing for unemployment, or it could raise your rates. But as I said, if your business has got to come first, and you got to make the right decision about your business and whether you can keep that person on or not. And sometimes if you have to cut costs, that may be the lesser evil there, just to let that person go and let them file unemployment.
Makes perfect sense. The other part of taxes, we think about owning homes and you pay monthly or annual property taxes. How does that transition over to business?
So in business, if you own real estate, you're going to pay real property taxes on the building that you have. Also, you're going to pay property taxes, so real personal property taxes if you have a desk or chairs and computers and other things that you work with in your business. You'll file an annual return for your personal property taxes as well.
I have paid that now that I think about it, and boy, it's almost a de-incentive to have a bunch of stuff, right? That's why a lot of people work virtually and all of that.
Yeah,
because that adds up.
It does, and over time the stuff will depreciate.
Okay.
And so you'll be able to pay less, but then you also could accumulate more assets, and so it's going to go back up. So
Uncle Sam making a killing, I swear. Brian King, business attorney in Augusta and Atlanta, and I couldn't recommend him more. Please go, as you can see up on the screen, to businessattorneylaw.com. Brian, Happy New Year to you, and continued success in 2022.
Thank you.
You're welcome.